Can you hear me?
All right, we are live. Gonna wait another minute or two, see if we can get a couple other people to join the feed, and then we'll get started.
You are not very loud.
All right.
Maybe.
We'll see if that does that help out.
Yes, immensely. Am I loud or am I too loud?
I can hear you, so yes, a little bit too loud,
Ooh,
but no.
burn, burn, baby, burn.
My coffee almost exploded. Ooh.
That would have been hilarious.
Good thing half of it's cold, so that's good.
1 second.
All right, I think it is officially start time. So as soon as my cohort here, Mr. Parker, gets back, we'll get this show on the road.
Can you play some entrance music for me?
We have some music playing right now.
All right. Is it cool? Is it good entrance music?
It is what it is.
All right, cool. Here I come.
Yes. Welcome, everybody, to Culturally Damaged with Kris, Parker, and Dan Parri.
What is this episode called?
It's called February 8th, 19th, 2021. That's what it's called.
And you got quite a setup in there, man. You really
how are you doing?
Enhanced your studio.
Hey, I'm working on it. I'm trying to get things developed a little bit here.
I'm going to stick with my flags and my books that you can't really see because you can't really tell what I read. That's the fun part about Zoom these days is you get to see everyone's books in the background so you can tell what kind of stuff they read.
Well, the other day I saw somebody was attending a committee meeting and she had a bunch of guns in the background. And so
cool
guns, So I'm surprised there wasn't a 10 Commandments back there too, maybe. But she said they were not there for storage. They were locked and loaded. So she had a few assault rifles behind her and a couple handguns. So I'm not really sure what she was expecting to happen during the Zoom committee meeting.
Yeah, exactly. It's like, the good thing about this pandemic is that school shootings are down because you can't shoot anybody on Zoom, which is not a laughing matter, but it is true. It's like one of the earth's a little cleaner and there's less school shootings. But what are you going to do?
I don't know. So anyway, as we get started here today, I just wanted to, for the first time in the history of the Pinellas County Sheriff's Office, we lost a deputy this week. And I just wanted to, part of the show, we're going to ask people if they want to call in, if they happen to know the Deputy Magley. I'd love for anybody to call in. We'll put that number up later, or just comment if you knew him, his family. So my understanding, he was 30 years old and had 2 young children. So we'll get a little bit into that today. But, for right now, I just want to let people know we are going to talk about that. And if you do know him or know anybody who does or would like to add something to that discussion, it doesn't have to be only about him, but also about our, the law enforcement community locally, how they're dealing with this, what it means and how do we move forward. And so, but anyway, Kris, so, on a little bit lighter note, how was your week this past week? So tell me about what's been going on with you. Family, all that good stuff. Anything?
Yeah, it's been a long week, man. I'm glad it's Friday. That's for sure. It's been a good week. Not much to report on, really. Busy getting a lot of family law cases at work. Those are tough ones, man. You go into law and you say that there's always certain things that you would never do. You never really say what you want to do. You always say, these are the things I'd never do. And I always said I would never practice criminal defense law, and I would never practice family law. And then on top of that, I said I'd never do corporate law. And those happen to be the 3 things that I have practiced. So I always tell young attorneys, don't plan your road for exactly what you want to do, but for what, opportunities arise. But the more I've gotten into doing family law, the more I've started to hate it less. I'm not going to say I like it because it's just such a terrible time in people's lives that it's a hard thing to do. But we do it and we take pride in it, and we've got a lot of those cases now. So that's what's been chewing up a lot of time on my side. But what about you?
Well, and on that note about family law, it's not the easy area, and sometimes when I'm dealing with probate and other issues like that, it's not the practice. It's not easy, but it's fulfilling in knowing that you're helping people. So there's, especially in family law, you're dealing with people at one of their worst moments of their life, and being able to be there for them, and just whether it's comforting or just letting them know that the world is not going to end,
Mhm.
legally at least, that
Yeah.
there's a path forward and stuff. So I think it's a good,
Yeah.
it's
What
rewarding.
what you find is that sadness of being kind of going through a divorce very quickly turns into anger and vengeful thinking. And then that's when kids become involved and begin to be used as pawns to get revenge. And that's what makes it difficult. It's not always the case, but when it is, you kind of have to really guide your client into thinking about what's important. And what's important in those cases, uh, when you have minor children involved, is that those you do what's best for those children, and that's really the only thing that matters. And sometimes it's hard to get people to focus on that because they want to do what's fair for them, not necessarily what's best for the child, and that's tough.
Just so you guys know, if you hear any weird sounds or see things moving around, there's no earthquake here in Clearwater. That's just Isla moving the palm tree around. So
That's a little distracting. I saw your tree move. I thought, what the hell's going on? I didn't feel that tremor over here in Dunedin.
yeah. No hurricanes, no earthquakes today. So we have enough with our weather system around this country. We definitely don't need earthquakes. But so anyway, the week for me, it's been a week. It's been a busy week, of course. As you, I am happy to make it to Friday. Got a couple extra workouts in this week. I'm happy about that.
Are you training for
Yeah,
something?
just re trying to get back into it. I got this race coming up, and
I was afraid you'd say that.
so I'm working on I got myself back under 240, 239 this morning. So
Very good. Very good.
250. So drop back that. Hopefully by race day, maybe I'll be 230. If I'm
Yeah.
230, you're in big trouble. Let me just tell you that. So
Yeah. Yeah. Well, if I had to pick a winner right now, I would say it would be you. At least, I think I'm at least. I broke 10 seconds. I think
I think it's called
recently.
rope a dope.
Yeah.
Kind of roll me into this.
I think you just need to take it easy, man. I'll probably be wearing the shoes that you gave me about 5 years ago, the purple ones, and that you didn't want, which is amazing that you thought those were too loud. Imagine if you thought they were too loud, how loud they would be. But I still wear those. Those are my running shoes.
Well, I would love to wear those, but I would have worn through those pretty quickly. There it goes again. So
They look brand new, dude. The tread's barely worn. So
outside of the moving palm
yeah.
tree here, nothing has been too out of control. Although I got my first bar complaint. So
Oh, nice, man.
yeah. So I don't do family law or anything or criminal, and I think you guys probably get them more often in family and criminal than you would in estate planning. But so a nursing home facility would not allow me to see somebody, and it had nothing to do with COVID. And so, because I wouldn't explain who I was there to, or he knew who I was there to see, but who hired me, what I was there for, he was not going to allow me to see the resident. And then I admit I got a little upset when I left. But you know what? When you won't let an attorney see their client, and you're concerned about neglect and other sorts of exploitation, I might get a little upset. So.
Oh, did you punch anybody? Did you break anything?
God, no. On my way out there, I may have been a little less friendly with my greeting away.
With your what? With your reading?
No, with my goodbyes.
With your fingers?
No,
your appendages? Did you have a particular appendage?
If there was no audio recordings, there's no proof of anything. So there was no.
Well, don't give them any on this radio show.
Yeah. So no physical displays of anything or anything like that. So, but anyway, it's a silly complaint. But as you know, Anytime anyone makes a bar complaint, we are required to answer it. So I just can't ignore it and act like it's a silly complaint, even though it is.
Now, when you answer a bar complaint, did you just write a letter to the client and copy it to in the response, or I guess it's not from a client, so that would make sense.
No. This guy really honestly, he has no standing. He was trying to say I disclose personal information, but yeah, on Facebook, I did say where the facility I went to and what I was doing there, but I didn't say anything about who my client was or who hired me or anything like that. So no client information. And as people are listening, just so you know, I mean, attorneys are not allowed to disclose their representation or non-representation. So when you call somebody and ask them, do you represent so-and-so? You may get the answer, I can't tell you. May not mean, it's kind of like these judicial elections. When somebody asks you what your party affiliation is, you're not allowed to say either way, or even if you're not. So it can be a little frustrating with people. I don't think people really want to hear that. And that probably didn't go over very well, but you got to do what you got to do.
Rules are rules, you know. Luckily, I haven't had a bar complaint yet. I'm shocked that I've gone 11 years and haven't had one, because I have so many clients. Because in criminal law, it's a lot of volume. Family law, it's a lot of volume. But it's only a matter of time. It didn't take very long to get. It took a while to get the first negative review. But I think as a company, we have 41 5-star reviews and we have 1 1-star review. So you can't make all the people happy all the time. And as Ken Heckler, congressman from West Virginia, once told me, if you could make half plus one happy, you've done your job. It's like quorum.
Yes, I agree. The world is, and I think as I've gotten more involved in politics and other stuff, you clearly see that you're never going to make everybody happy.
It's just not possible. I mean, if you can get the American people, especially in this climate, to agree on anything at 60, 70%, I mean, that is probably as high as you're going to get. I mean, you're never going to get 100%. That's for sure.
Do you think we could get 100% or over 60% on is the sky blue or not?
No. I mean, the Earth's not round, so the sky's certainly not blue. It's a tealish blue. It's whatever it is. No. There's just people who are naysayers. They can't conform to everyone else, even if it's a fact. They can't conform to that fact. So it's always going to be those people. The conspiracy theorists that we live amongst today will always have some conspiracy as to the sky is not really blue. It's just the way we've been trained to see it.
Mm-hmm. Well, on that note, I mean, there is science here. The sky, I guess, technically isn't blue. It's just the what do you call it? Rays of light that are interpreted by the retinas that are then turned into electrical signals, and our brain sees blue. But technically, yes, the sky is blue.
Yes, technically it is a different color. Science.
It's really,
what is science?
It's clear. It's just the light reflecting off the particles in the sky that make it blue, I think. So anyway, enough about science. I mean, who cares about science in this country, right? Whether it's the coronavirus or climate change or, anything, right?
Well, there's been a big shift, I think. We're seeing a lot more science-driven policy, especially when it comes to COVID right now. And, that is pretty, it's been pretty nice to see the news. Like, I barely see the president, and it's fine. And you can say what you want. He's in a bunker. He's in bed. I know it's not true. He's doing his job. He just doesn't need to be the center of attention all of the time. And I enjoy seeing all these scientific experts out there talking and taking the lead on some of these issues, and the president letting these people do their jobs. But it seems to be a lot more science-driven leadership, at least in the last month or so. That's encouraging, at least to me.
Tony was chiming in here saying that criminal law would make him go fully white hair. Wow.
Man, I find that criminal law is actually the least stressful of all the law that I do. It's called criminal law versus civil law, but it is way more civil than civil law is criminal law. I got people that come in here facing life in prison that are extremely more in control of themselves than the person who's going through a divorce, who wants 75% time sharing, but they're staring down the barrel of maybe 60% time sharing. And to them, that is the end of the world. And I'm not sure what the phenomenon with that is. Maybe it's just people that are facing criminal charges, are used to being in trouble normally, and so they just don't react to overly react to situations that seem overly, panicky. But that criminal law it calms me, actually. It really does, as opposed to the family side.
It's kind of how I feel when I'm out there running like 8 miles. I feel calm and then pain, but calm in between the moments of pain. So
Well, that's a good way to put criminal law. It certainly is. The system is definitely set up to make people fail. A great example today, if you don't mind me digging into it, is we got a guy. He's a terrible driving record. I'm not mentioning any names, obviously, but the guy's got a terrible driving record from his past. Now, that was a long time ago. All of that was youthful indiscretions over the years, where he picked up DUIs. He was a habitual traffic offender, which suspended his license for 5 years, and now the guy's in his 60s. He's an older guy, and he wants to make amends. He's settled down, lives in a different state now, wants to get his driver's license. So we've worked with him over a year and a half, paying thousands and thousands upon thousands of dollars to get all these courts and fines paid. He's gone to his DUI schools. He's done everything that he needs to do. But there's one thing that the Florida DMV needs him to do before they can reinstate his license. Except for, in addition to paying the $250 or whatever to reinstate your license, and that is to get an interlock device, which is a breath machine in your car, installed into his vehicle. Well, the problem is he doesn't have a vehicle. So what is he to do? So we call the DMV locally. We call the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. We call the DMV in Tallahassee. And we cannot get around this problem. This guy has to get an interlock device into a car that he doesn't own. And he can't get a car because to buy a car, you have to have good title and insurance to walk out. And he doesn't have a valid driver's license, so he can't get it. So this guy's just, because of his past, he's unable to dig himself out of this hole that admittedly he dug for himself. But why not help this guy? Why not help this guy become a contributing member to society? Let him get his license back. Let him change his life. But it's so hard for those people, man. It's so hard because once you're in it, it's so hard to get out.
Well, and as you talk about that, unfortunately, we have the most recent incident, as we were talking about earlier, with Deputy Magley, and he was killed by a DUI. And somebody with a long, history, obviously a much more recent. I think the gentleman or the man in the driving the truck was 38 years old, and obviously that person's record was ongoing, current record, and and that's the what your client is facing is the stuff that like what just happened, and
yeah.
And in the face of what just happened, you can see that it as I'm sure he's realizing like any sort of sympathy for him that he may have had before this week in this local area, may have just dried up. Now, through no fault of his own, and like you said, this is a long time ago for him. He's trying to get his, but you obviously people are very worked up over this. You hear people saying eye for an eye. This guy, obviously, the justice system will take care of the person who.
Oh yeah, they most certainly will. But the problem is that people are going to say, well, why are they just now taking care of him? Why did it take someone to die before they took care of him? And listen, I have no problem with strong regulation, reasonably strong regulation against people that are out there causing harm to innocent people, like this Deputy Magley that passed away. And God bless his family and the sheriff's office and everybody else that's having to deal with it. But I do at the same time think that these restrictions have to be reasonable. And it is not reasonable to ask someone to have an interlock device in their car if they don't have a car. That just doesn't make any sense. There's got to be a workaround. Like, say, for instance, if you do ever drive a car, it has to have an interlock device in it. That's fine. That makes total sense. I mean, all this stuff's 30 years later. But instead, they're saying that in order for us to give you your license back, you have to have an interlock installed in a car. And it doesn't even have to be your car. It could be your friend's car, your sister's car. And what sense does that make?
Well, I was going to ask you, so is there any sort of restrictions from somebody in that, let's just say he had his own car, he put an interlock into his own car. is there any prohibition from him driving somebody else's car? I mean, are other people?
Uh, if he's driving a car, it has to have an interlock in it for a certain amount of time, and that's not a problem. But he doesn't have a car,
No, I
so
guess what I'm saying is like, let's just say he got his license. He had a car. He got his license back. He got the interlock installed in his car.
okay.
He went to Disney with his friend who drove their car, and then the friend is just too tired to drive back. Is he permitted to drive that person's car back to Tampa from Disney?
Not if not if that interlock's not in it.
Okay.
He's not supposed to. If he got stopped, then he would be in trouble. You
Okay.
know, he would need to drive a car that has that interlock in it. That would be the only car he's really okay to drive. And all of that information from his blow in today's world, which is crazy, actually goes to the company who monitors the device, who sends periodic messages back to Florida, especially if there's a problem, so that the authorities in Florida know. So it's just bad policy that he has to have one put in order to get his license back, because there are people who can't afford to have a car, and I don't think those people were ever considered when this policy was made. And since he doesn't have a car, now he can't get a license. And a lot of times, if you don't have a license, you can't get a
Well, you
car.
know what though? I think just not that we need to solve these problems on the air,
That'd be nice. I could get something knocked out. That'd be good.
but I do believe that you can take title to a vehicle without, and there's a difference between registering it. So if he
Right.
could take ownership of a vehicle, have it titled in his name, then he would be able to get an interlock put into his vehicle, and then he would be able to get his license. I'm not sure how the insurance part of that would work. He couldn't insure it, obviously, without registration. He couldn't drive it either.
Yeah.
I know he could purchase a vehicle because I've gone through that process through probates and all that, where I don't want to register the vehicle, with insurance and all that. But anyway,
Yeah, that makes sense. It's just every time that I've ever bought a car, which has been from a dealership, that you have to have title and insurance when you leave. But I imagine if you bought a car from dude down the street, he'll probably give you title for whatever cash you give him. So yeah, that makes sense actually. I mean, if you were able to buy a car off the street and then put the interlock in it without insurance. But I don't know if they'll put the interlock in it without insurance. But so we're just going to have to think this through. But
call me call me this weekend. We'll work this one out. We'll figure it out.
yeah, we need to get a think tank together for this one. That's for sure.
Anyway, besides, so we'll come back to some of this stuff about Deputy Bankley and the fund. So as it's scrolling down here at the bottom, if you're not able to watch and you're just listening, you can go to any SunTrust branch in the Pinellas or the Hemp Bay area and make a contribution to that fund. They do have a GoFundMe set up. You can also write a check. I believe it's to the Pinellas County Sheriff's Financial Division, FBO, the Memorial Fund. As we said, that he was married, he had 2 young children. He's going to be leaving behind. His wife was a nurse or is a nurse. So it's going to be a difficult, and obviously these men and women put their life on the line for us. And, this past year has not always shed them in a favorable light in everybody's view. But they really do, obviously there's bad apples in every lot. But this gentleman seemed to be one of the good ones and one of the many good ones. And I think our community is going to be worse off without an deputy like himself. So,
and I think most deputies are, like Deputy Magley. They go to work, they protect their community, they do a good job. They chose the line of work for the right reasons. Obviously, there are those that aren't. But everything that I've seen about him was top notch, and we need more like him, because I oftentimes deal with people who aren't as dedicated to their job and good at what they do. But more often than we deal with those people, we deal with good deputies who do a good job, and they don't get enough respect. That's for sure.
No, not at all. So lately there's been some little kind of, like I said, we'll kind of come back and forth with this issue. And so if anyone wants to chime in on that, they're welcome to. But we've also had some legislation that's been proposed here lately. I'm not sure if you've seen some of this stuff in the Florida House. Um, there's been some legislation. What was it about? I know they just something about employment and apprenticeships and stuff like that. That's happening. They're trying to prevent local governments from making their own rules about apprenticeships and different things like that at the state level. Um, there was a couple other. Not sure if you're familiar with that one, but there was a couple of.
I am actually not, but I noticed that there has been a big trend, especially in the state of Florida, of the state kind of emasculating city governments, and whether it be with guns or really any type of law, um, the state government wants to control that power, and I think the reason's obvious, right? Because one party controls the power at the state level, and it's a very exclusive, dominant power that they have at the state level in Tallahassee. So they want to capture that power and retain it as much as they can. But the argument that I've heard for years and years and years, especially in the South, is that Big Brother federal government is trying to control everything we do. And so if we're really for and pro small government, then why do we do the exact same thing at the state level down to the bottom? So it really, discredits your rhetoric about local government and local, regulation and letting people kind of regulate themselves locally when you do that at the state level. Because Florida's a big state, and what's right in the Panhandle might not be exactly what's right in South Florida, and we know that for a fact. And so, prohibiting these small governments on the county and city level of making laws pertaining to certain, like every session, it's a different thing that they prohibit local government from being able to legislate. Why is that? I mean, why can't we, as long as it's not against the Florida, the U.S. Constitution, why are they getting involved in city government?
Well, I think one of these, as you mentioned, the Florida House and the Florida Senate and the governorship are all Republican, very heavily Republican. So our state government is very Republican. But as we've seen over the past 10 years, especially, the metropolitan areas in Florida have turned blue. And so the population centers are turning blue. And I think that's really what this is about, is you've got cities like Jacksonville, Tampa, St. Petersburg, Tallahassee, Miami, that are putting in some of these regulations that are seen as a little bit more progressive than what and they realize that in a de facto sense, even though they're not the state, they control so much of the population that and the population centers, that if these cities are allowed to do things that are a little bit more progressive, then the whole state's going to be progressive. And I think that's part of
it's such a terrible argument, because what do you care if you don't live in those areas that are governed by progressives? Then why do you want to get involved? Then why do you want to go over there and get involved? We talk about too much government and government overreach. Why is it not government overreach when the state wants to tell the city of Miami that they can't, regulate the things that they choose to regulate? Because liberals and progressive continue to get elected in those areas. So obviously the people's will, the people have spoken when they continue to elect progressives in their policies that they run on. So why does this feel the need to come in and neuter those leaders from being able to carry out the people's will? It's a theme in Florida. It just continues to happen. We saw it with the amendment for voting rights for those who, the people of Florida voted that felons could vote as long as they've served their time and paid their fines.
I was going to say, as you brought up the voting, one of those laws that they're proposing is to put limits on mail-in voting. So the Republicans.
Sure.
So for the past 20 years, the Republican Party has been the proponent and the advocate for mail-in ballots up until 2019 and a half or something, or 2000.
That was whenever Trump felt like it was not a good idea for him to do anymore. And there's a lot of opinions as to why he came out against mail-in voting, and people on the right will tell you because there's so much fraud associated with it. but that's not true. That's certainly not true. You can look at the facts if you think they exist. That these are very well regulated and very closely watched when these come in. Um, so back when I first started in politics and I came to Florida, we had such a disadvantage in mail-in voting because the Republicans were really pushing mail-in voting, especially for the older voters who didn't want to get out and vote. And then while the Democrats had always pushed early voting in that week to 2 weeks leading up to the election, and then when Democrats caught on and started doing mail-in voting and early voting and trying to limit the amount of people that actually come to the polls on election day, then it became a problem. But I really do think it seemed to be something that Donald Trump thought that he could point the finger to as being fraudulent after he lost the 2020 election. And I think he said it from the beginning, and I think it doomed him, honestly. The Republican Party in the state of Florida and other states were thrown off by that because they depend on mail-in voting, and especially during a pandemic. Why wouldn't we want to have mail-in voting?
Well, and I think, and so some of those in that proposed legislation, they want to make it so that I think every year or every other year you have to actually re-request to have a mail-in ballot too. So right now, I think your request is good for 2 years, and they just send you a little thing, and when you send your ballot back, you just check a little box that says "keep sending me." So
at the end of the day, they want to put more red tape and make it a little bit harder to vote. I mean, I would like to hear somebody from the other side tell me exactly why that is, because right now I believe if I request a mail-in ballot, don't I get it for so many years and then have to re-request after, was it 4 years? I have to go back and ask again.
But even the re-request is just checking a little box when you send your ballot in. So on the envelope, there's a little box on there. So I mean, it just, obviously this is just intended to, either it may not actually have a practical implication, but it's meant to get people off the voter rolls, make it harder for people to vote. And that's seems to be the playbook of the Republican Party. So,
well, it has to be. It has to be because they're stuck in such a terrible situation right now because they can either follow this 30% base that won't leave Trump, or they can dump Trump and try to rebrand. Either way, it's a losing recipe when everybody votes, because when we all vote, the left wins. And so what do? You have to make sure that everybody doesn't vote. So you got to find ways to suppress the vote. You got to put up obstacles and different barriers for people to being able to get a chance to vote. So
we did have a comment here that was a little bit in opposition to some of the stuff we were talking about with the changes at the state level or what the Republicans are doing.
Edward, give us an example of something that's been passed at the local level. And I'm not being adversarial. I'm just asking. Give us an example for our own help of something that has been passed at the local level that doesn't meet Florida constitutional muster. Because if it doesn't, then there is a system for that, and it's called the courts. We go to the courts and we test the constitutionality of something in a court system. We don't just say you can't pass laws. We say your law's unconstitutional, and we're going to challenge that. I don't know if Mr. Klassen is an attorney or not, but I would like to hear his explanation of that.
So yeah, and so that's I would agree, and that's the issue with the different things, and one of them was the stupid thing about straws, or plastic bags. They passed legislation years ago that said that local governments can't tell grocery stores that they can't use plastic bags or they have to use paper. So I'm not sure how that would. Look, I get it. Grocery stores may not want to do it, but at the same time, I don't see how that violates the Constitution. Something like that, though.
I don't know what constitutional section that it violates. If a single community, especially in an area that might be on the Gulf or on the ocean, wants to cut down on the amount of debris that gets put in its waters that helps bring people to its town for tourism dollars, and the people are voting in these councils and these mayors and these county commissioners to pass these laws. What business is it of the state of Florida to get involved and tell everybody that they have to live under the same regime as everybody? It doesn't make any sense. why do we even have local government if they can't govern themselves?
Well, on that note too, what the hell was I going to say here? I don't know. Just keep going. I lose my train of thought pretty easily. It's not hard. So
Yeah, no, yeah, I agree with what Tony says here too. It's government overreach, and it's been a theme for years that that's what the federal government does to the poor old southern states who want to govern themselves and have small government. But at the same time, we're doing the same thing with a state of over 20 million people. We have a legislature that is completely gerrymandered. I mean, you think about it, man. We've got how many registered Republicans do we have in the state, and how many registered Democrats do we have in the state? We anytime we have a statewide election, it's razor thin, right? So when you look at the legislature in Tallahassee, you would expect to see the same thing you see in our statewide elections, which is a half blue, half red legislature, because it should be reflective of our population. But the just unconscionable gerrymandering that has taken place over the last several years, I can tell you right now, and you know it, and everybody else knows it, that Florida is a state with California problems, but with a Mississippi legislature. And there's no reason why we should have a Mississippi legislature in the state of Florida, because it does not reflect what the state looks like.
no.
And that's a problem, man. That is a huge problem.
Well, and I was talking to some political insiders this week, and there's some discussion that Pinellas County may be losing a House district for the, or at least a portion of a House district in the Florida House, and so that the district that has who was it, that it's the one that has part of Oldsmar and Hillsborough, that
Right.
Oldsmar Safety Harbor is going to become part of the 67 and I think 65 or 69 up there. And
I just don't understand how we could possibly lose House seats. Somebody might have to explain it to me, because
Well,
our population is certainly not.
the issue is that Hillsborough's population has way outpaced Pinellas County's growth.
No, there's nowhere to move here. I mean, it's
Yeah.
all the land's taken. It's the most densely populated county in the state of Florida. So yeah, I mean that makes sense. But
And
yeah.
so, but the discussion is that when that happens, of course, the gerrymandering is going to get even worse. And so essentially that likely the only two places that Democrats will be able to get elected is going to be Michelle Rayner's district down in that St. Pete, part of Hillsborough County, and then part of, I think it's Manatee County, and Ben Diamond. And so it's going to be very difficult. Jennifer Webb used to have a district in Gulfport, but that district is likely to include more of the beach communities. And so even though some of those cities may be more progressive in general, the beach communities are not. Beach communities are heavy white, heavy wealthy, and heavy Republican. So
Absolutely. And when you add those into, those more urban areas, then you're less likely to win a seat in those areas. And they know what they're doing. I mean, they redistrict every so often. And I think this is a redistricting year coming up. And the majority party is going to be in control of that. And they're going to continue to gerrymander. And if you don't know what gerrymandering is, don't worry. A lot of people don't. But if you just Google it, and hit images, there's actually images that show when you have a cut of people, a sample of 100 people, that your legislature should reflect the views of those people. But when you gerrymander geographically and you draw these areas up to benefit your party, and this is not something that's just done on the Republican side. If you go out to California, you notice that there's been rampant gerrymandering too. But all these things that are done that are not right always start out, the right always starts out doing them. And the left is slow to follow. And they end up getting their ass kicked because they're going to a gunfight with a knife. And then they realize they got to get a knife. And then as soon as it becomes a knife fight, then they start coming to a knife fight. It's just, we continue to try to be the honorable party, but then we have to catch up to what the other side's doing, and we continue to do what they do, and we have to because there's no regulation against it. And I think that's how the system has gotten to where it is now. But gerrymandering is a problem for both parties, and it should be stopped. There needs to be some laws against it. There was a Supreme Court ruling not too long ago, right, Dan, about the gerrymandering that took place on the federal level here in Florida that actually changed a lot of the districts that got Charlie Crist sort of handed him his seat that David Jolly used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and there was also a seat held by Corin Brown, who is a very controversial figure up in North Florida, up in the Jacksonville area. But she had the most gerrymandered district that I ever saw. It went up above in North Jacksonville and got most of the black areas, made its way all the way down the St. Johns River and went over into Gainesville and pulled all those college kids together so that you're getting all the progressive votes in one swoop. So that's not the way districts are supposed to be made. You're supposed to just take lumps of people that live close together, and that's a district.
Well,
But
and it's not like gerrymandering came into play during Reconstruction or the Civil War, but it was a huge part of the Reconstruction era, where originally, we are in Black History Month here, so as part of the African Americans or the black residents of our country did have the right to vote. They started voting. They started voting African Americans into office, and as soon as that started happening, the whites who were in control of all this stuff started changing the districts, and so they made sure that no more African Americans were elected into office, and obviously changing the rules and preventing them from voting entirely. But
mhm.
a lot of this, when we talk about institutional racism and a lot of that stuff, some of that gerrymandering is still rooted back from those days. So, a lot of that took place.
No, absolutely. Any way that you can stay in power, that's what you do, and especially if it's within the rules, which there really is no constitutional safeguards to gerrymandering, and there should be. Gerrymandering to me is right up there with campaign finance. Is the two biggest threats to our democracy. Um, if we can fix those two problems, I think we could actually save our republic, at least for the foreseeable future. But those problems, make it very difficult because, you have a state like Florida that its government is not representative of its people, and it's not the only state like that, but it's probably the largest state that has such a terrible reflection of what its people look like in its state capital.
And so Tony brought up here, there are rumors, and we've heard them, that David Jolly may run for governor. I think there's talk that he would run, though, as an independent and not as a Democrat or a Republican. So, Kris, what do you think the chances of an independent getting elected? What do you think that would do? Would it help, hurt either party? What do you think about that?
Well, I think it depends on the independent candidate. You can ask, well, you can't ask him because he's passed away, but ask George H.W. Bush, which is George Bush Sr. Ask him what an independent could do to his race. I mean, it thwarted Bill Clinton into the presidency because when Ross Perot ran back in 1992. But it just depends on the candidate. Does the candidate appeal more to the Republican voter? Do they appeal more to the Democratic-leaning voter? And with David Jolly, it's really tough to say, right? Because he's a lifelong Republican who has totally made kind of a turn to the left, at least towards the center. To the far right probably despises him and considers him to be a turncoat because he's been on MSNBC constantly. He's gone after the President Trump repeatedly on the air many times. So you got to think he's probably going to pull some Democratic voters, probably more so than Republican voters, away from the Democrat who runs. But, the idea is to get the best candidate in office. And I like David Jolly. I think David Jolly is a very reasonable guy. I've dealt with him before when I did some work in single issue campaigns, and he was always very open and reasonable and listen, even though that our positions weren't the same. He would always listen and he would always call back. But I think it would be interesting. But who would run? Who do you think, Dan, would be the Democratic candidate if we were to hold the election? Well, hell, it's coming up, right? We have just another year, so.
I have no idea. I mean, there's obviously discussions. I think Nikki Fried is one of the very front runners, at least as far as throwing her name in there. I'm not sure if she's. I mean, she has probably the most name recognition, obviously, or one of the most because she's been in office and held statewide office. So I think that's very important. And I think, just like this last election, it's going to come down to electability. Like who do you think, from a Democratic perspective, how do you get rid of DeSantis? A lot of Democrats, including myself, see DeSantis as really just a little mini Trump. Maybe not quite as. I think DeSantis is more grounded. I just think he's maybe more corrupt, though. I
I think
think
he's Trump
Trump is more
without the charm. He's Trump without the
um,
enthusiasm.
and I think that DeSantis is just looking at it from a practical matter of I want to stay in office and I'm going to do whatever I got to do to stay in office. So, which may not be that much different than any other politician, but I do think it's more important that we remove, Governor DeSantis than it is to get the perfect, replacement candidate. And I think that's going to be the issue, though, is because with Democrats, if David Jolly runs, like, are Democrats really going to vote for him? Because if they do, there is no. I mean, it seems like a given that DeSantis would win.
Yeah,
Um,
there's no road to victory unless Jolly pulls a lot of his older Reagan Republicans who are sick of the new Trump Republican Party, and he can pull some of those. But chances are he's going to pull the equal amount from both sides, and maybe he makes it a wash. But either way, it's very unpredictable, and in politics, unpredictable is not good, right? Um, if we
I
put
would be
people,
scared. I would be terrified as a Democrat that if David Jolly ran as an independent, that it would just make DeSantis's run to the governorship so much easier. Because I
yeah,
just being around Republicans, I don't know that he has. I don't. Obviously, there are still some Reagan Republicans, but as Haley, she was what, the ambassador to the UN, or not UN, but
no,
something.
she's former South Carolina
Yeah,
governor.
and she had brought out that the in an op-ed or something had talked about that the Republican Party's not going back. Like, and it's true. I mean, that's the reality is rarely ever in history do we ever go back in history. So once things change, once you have a cell phone, you don't go back to the rotary. You just don't. And so, for obviously, in our opinion, the Republican Party is worse off for having Trump. But even after he leaves, the party is not going to go back to the George Bushes, the Mitt Romneys, the John McCain type candidates. So this party is going to be forever changed, and I'm a little nervous about what is going to happen. My hope is I think that these more established Republicans can somehow vote out these people. But the hard part is they're going to have to be okay with losing. Like, they're going to have to be okay with losing for 6 to 10 years if they want to recover the party for the next 50 years.
Right.
So,
I'm actually reading a good book right now called Twilight of Democracy. It's kind of about the lure of authoritarianism. So actually the subtitle is The Seductive Lure of Authoritarianism. And I think we're kind of experiencing some of that right now in this country. And it is sometimes easier to have these baseless conspiracy theories than it is to actually dig in complex issues and try to figure out a solution to such a big problem. But it's a good book. I would suggest anybody read it. But
so let me ask you: if you ever get elected to Congress, right, and we have a Category 5 hurricane coming, are you going to take a ski trip to Vail?
of course, yeah. Why would
Right?
I want to be here during a hurricane, especially if I'm making that kind of money?
Yeah, right. Maybe the
Yeah,
whole neighborhood might as well, right?
yeah, yeah. It's a real profile in courage, right? They always say that true leaders, show that they're true leaders during times of crisis, and that's when we really step up is during times like this. Sort of like I hate to say it because it sounds so crazy now, but Rudy Giuliani after 9/11, really made a name for himself because of the way he stepped up. George W. Bush, came to the plate
Hell,
during
even
9/11.
Rick Scott put his little jacket on and put his
Yeah, no, Rick Scott,
there in the
I think
command
he got
center.
good scores for Hurricane Irma, was it?
I will say the only thing I ever saw that Rick Scott did well is he did do a good job of at least trying to calm people and be, and always, whether it's 2 o'clock in the morning, be up there for his little, his what do you call news
Press
conference,
conference, yeah.
updates, and different things like that. And he did do well with the hurricanes, and so that's probably one of the reasons he got reelected, and even
Yeah,
elected.
no, I can't really stand the guy, and I think he's done just about, like you said, I think he's done just about everything wrong, especially since he's become a U.S. senator, and he should have never been governor. He should have never won the Senate race, but he did. But I think the one thing that you can point at and shine a light on that he actually did right was that during a time of crisis. I mean, you never let a crisis. Every crisis is an opportunity to a politician, right? So that this was a great opportunity for little Lion Ted Cruz to get out and put his mittens on and get out there and deliver firewood to people's homes and get these photo ops. But instead, his political instincts led him to Cancun. And it just makes no sense. I mean, what in the hell was going on in that guy's mind that made him think that he could go to Cancun and then tell people that the only reason he went was to ride with his kids,
Yeah.
chaperone them on the visit because there's nobody else that could have taken them but him. And even if that's the case, you
His
can't
wife
leave
is
the state
so,
right now.
she can't handle herself. She's such a delicate woman that she couldn't. That's nonsense, of course.
Well,
So
you don't go. If the family has to sacrifice a little bit and not go to their Mexican vacation, then you don't go. But what a crock of crap that was.
And there's nothing wrong with him sending his family. Like, I have no problem whatsoever. If he could send his family, fine. But
I
you, as
don't
the
care what
elected
his family
official,
does, but
you stay put.
yeah, I mean, get involved, man. Be part of the solution. I just really think, honestly, that these people that are running for office on the Republican side now firmly believe that government is not the solution to any problem. That's their whole point: is that government is not going to save you. In fact, they get elected running to save that whole thing that, we can't depend on government, right? The government is not a good thing. Government is a bad thing. And so we elect them to run the government. And what do they run it into the ground? They leave when there's huge catastrophes going on. And they just firmly believe that government is not the solution to any problem. So should we be surprised when someone doesn't come out and help and use the resources of taxpayers' dollars to help people during a hurricane or during a major power failure, which Texas has its own power grid, and they do it so that they won't have to undergo federal regulation for their power grid, and so it's completely 100% deregulated in the last several years. And but why is it that they're blaming the turbines, the wind turbines? Why do they even have them? They control their.
Well,
If they don't work, why do they have them? It's a completely Republican-run state.
Well, I mean, I think wind makes up like 5% of the total energy output of.
I've read 12. I've read.
Okay, 12. Yeah. But there are 3 electrical grids in the United States of America. There's the Western grid, there's the Eastern grid, and there's Texas,
the Lone Star State.
Yeah. So I mean, it just seems idiotic, and I hear Rick Perry running his mouth and calling the federal government, but he was the one in charge. Like, he was in control of the Department of Energy for like 4 years. So when they talk about these crazy federal regulators and all that kind of stuff, he was the person. He was the one in charge. And so they blame everybody. That's just, I mean, look, it doesn't matter what political party you're affiliated with. If you've got a problem, you blame the other side. So that is partly natural. Tony here said that he would, if he was elected, that he would stay in Florida during a hurricane and help others. Well, I appreciate that, Tony. And just so you know, Tony, that is one of the reasons that it helps me motivate to stay healthy and stay fit. Part of me, I don't want to be a negative. If we ever had, I don't want to have to be rescued. I'd much rather be able to help people in a time of emergency instead of having to feel like I need to be rescued because I'm not physically capable of taking care of myself. So that is a big reason that everybody should make and should consider their health and physical fitness because of that kind of stuff. The reality, and look, getting back down to this reality business here, even in Texas with the cold, if you're unhealthy, you're not fit, your body doesn't have the same reserve left. And you're putting yourself at jeopardy that when you get cold or your other, when other things start to happen, it can cause other sort of catastrophic, events that will kill you. And as we just realized with our deputy here, life ends and it's over. And it doesn't have to be a car accident, or it could, and it just seems absurd that someone's going to die freezing to death or die in a hurricane just because they're not strong enough to pull themselves out of a little bit of water or something,
Especially in
or
Texas.
you
No
know
one moves to Texas thinking they're going to freeze to death
no.
unless they
No, I
get.
know. I always say, like, I don't want to live in Michigan because, like, at least if my car breaks down in Florida, no matter what time of the year, I'm not going to die.
Yeah.
Like,
Oh, there's some heat exhaustion there, maybe.
somewhat.
Heat exhaustion.
Not even that. But that's the reality. Like, if you get that hot,
Alligators.
an alligator, yes.
Alligator Alley. You don't want to break down there.
If you crash into Lake Okeechobee, you might be in trouble.
Yeah, you would be poisoned to death by all the crap they put in the water. That would be awful. That'd be the worst place to get stuck. That's for sure.
Big Sugar makes it sure it's all clean. All the water down there is all clean.
Yeah, it's definitely sweet. No, I agree with you. Staying in shape is tough though. I've gone back on keto this week, and it's crazy how much weight you can lose, especially at first. I think I've lost 4 to 5 pounds just since Monday, and I wasn't going to tell you that because I didn't want you to think that I was trying. But just taking an extra step, and really, and Dan can contest to this too. You get used to that. You get used to it. If you cut sugars out, you really get used to it, and it just doesn't taste that good to you anymore. Now it's very easy to get back into that slump by having a couple of chocolate bars here and there, and next thing you know, you're back into it. But it's an addiction. It's worse than any other addiction is sugar. And if you and Dan, I know you're dying to talk about this because you live for this, but it's true though. You just have to stay away from sugar. If you can stay away from carbs, it's a great thing too, but you got to work your body too. And if you're taking in too much protein, you got to work it off because my understanding is that protein can turn into stored fat if it's not used for muscle. So oils, things like that are big for me. Oils, eggs, fatty things that will burn off. But it just depends on, you choose your weapon. You can go about it in a lot of different ways, but you have to be cognizant.
Well, it is obviously sugar is the devil as far as I'm concerned. My goal politically, I'm never going to run for office, but I do hope to help people. My goal is to end sugar's grip on American society. Obviously, we're not going to take care of that overnight, but I would just like to help locally. But that, of course, that is one of those issues that could be thwarted by a Republican Congress in Florida here. So they may not.
Let us be, Dan. Let us be. Your big government ways are trying to outlaw ice cream and puppy dogs.
Well, I'm not necessarily going to outlaw puppy dogs, but
maybe ice cream, right?
So, but it is important. It is extraordinarily important. The winter months are usually more difficult for people to stay in shape. We tend to spend more time inside. We're not outside in the sun. Vitamin D levels go down. People feel more lethargic. You get out of work at 5 o'clock, and at least earlier in the month or in January, it was dark by 5:30. Yes, thank you, Wendy. Wendy is here. She is a dietitian and nutritionist down in St. Petersburg. And
oh wow, yeah, that's somebody we could talk to.
Oh, Wendy's going to be on the show someday soon. So
I'd love to have her. I'd love to have her talk about some of these things because we have theories, but I'm not always sure that my theories are correct. It's always what I read online, but to have someone who actually studies it would be good. But it's good to hear that we're all on agreement about sugar, though, right? Sugar is bad. Can I ask Wendy though, while we still have a little bit of time though, about sugar substitutes? I know it's hard because she's trying to type, but obviously I try to stick to stevia, but I'm not very good at it because I'm not great at keeping it in my pocket. I used to have a little bottle dripper that I keep in my pocket, but I don't always have it. So you do the Sweet and Lows, the Splendas, and you hear terrible things about those.
Well, let me give you my experience. So that is one of the reasons why I completely slowly but got myself off of artificial sweeteners even. So I not only don't eat sugar, but I do not use any sort of artificial, whether it's stevia, a natural artificial, or a chemical artificial. I slowly weaned myself even off of that, and it was for that exact what you just said. Is what if you're in a situation you no longer have the
Mm-hmm.
artificial? Your body is still craving that level of sweetness, and
Mm-hmm.
we're human, and if we're in a risky situation and there's no artificial or there's no whatever, our body is going to say, we can just let's just this one time. And like
Mm-hmm.
you said, sugar is a drug, and
Mm-hmm.
for me, I treat it like alcoholism. For me, if I don't eat any sugar, I can never be, continue down my sugar holic and get back to 400 pounds and all that kind of stuff. And so for me, it's a little, it's easier because I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
It is hard, but it wasn't simple. And I don't think everybody has to be no sugar, but it does make it easier because I can walk into Dunkin' Donuts, I can walk through the Publix bakery or whatever, and
It just depends on your personality, man. I mean, some people have obsessive personalities.
like me.
Some people can gamble every now and then. They could have a drink every now and then, and some people can't even get near it. You know what I mean? Because they have to keep bail money in their pocket as soon as they have their first drink because it's going to turn into a fiasco. And I think I think you're kind of that way with sugar, and I think that how bad it can get, and you'd just rather stay away from it. And that there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. It is terrible. It can be terrible, but anything is good in moderation if you can allow yourself to be moderate with it. And that's the hard thing. And
That is, my mom and everybody else would love to say everything in moderation. And that's nice.
even heroin,
Well, that's exactly what you get down to. All your sugar should be bound in fiber.
crack's okay if you just do it occasionally.
Here, you hear? So you see, Wendy? All sugar should be bound in fiber. And that's pretty much how I kind of go with it. So
Yeah.
I eat lots of fruit. I eat lots of things like that have sugar in it. But everything that has sugar in it that I eat, it's a natural sugar, but it's also
Right.
going to have lots of fiber. So blueberries,
Yeah.
blackberries.
I guess that's kind of like in the keto diet when you subtract the grams of fiber from the grams of carbohydrates, it gives you a net carbohydrate. And I guess that's where fiber, that's what she's saying is it should be bound in fiber, I guess. Tell me if I'm
Well,
wrong.
it
Could be
slows. Well, it keeps that blood sugar more level, and
wrong.
that's really the goal. I think in whether it's weight loss or just not being hungry, is to keep that sugar levels as level as you can without the highs and the lows.
Mm-hmm.
Because those highs, there's always going to be a low, and when you hit the low, that's when the danger starts hitting it. That's when the cravings, that's when things start happening, and you feel like you have to eat more sugar. So.
Mm-hmm.
But on top of that, the other side of that is physical activity. And on that note, so I started doing yoga. I think I mentioned that last week, and so good. Started doing yoga. I've been doing it for about a month or so now. But on Sundays, if anybody is interested, hopefully they'll still have it this Sunday. It's gonna be a little chilly, but Safety Harbor downtown, 10 o'clock in the morning. I believe it's Kaylee Scope Yoga is doing it's free. It's kind of like for beginners and stuff like me. And so if you want to come out and do that, get out there and do stuff. It's going to be a little chilly this weekend, but the weather is warming up. We are nowhere near. There's no ice storm here. So there's no excuse to sit on the couch. There's no more football.
There are a couple layers. You're fine. It's not that cold outside.
No. So get outside this weekend. You can, as I like to post pictures of food and stuff that I cook. I cook all kinds of food that has very little.
No, I haven't noticed that.
So, you haven't noticed?
No, haven't noticed. Haven't noticed being on any runs either.
I'll start texting you each night then.
Yeah, you need to start posting more of these. I'm not catching them.
Well, actually,
obviously you're not casting a wide enough net.
Yeah. So, people ask me about opening a restaurant, and my response to that is I do not want to work like 80 to 100 hours a week. Like that is just I've known people who've owned restaurants. I see what goes on behind the scenes.
No, that's a tough business, man. No, not for me. Thought about it. Nope. I can eat some food, but I'm not preparing it for anyone.
I think running for office, it may be the only thing that is more work than running a restaurant. And so that's the other reason people keep asking me about.
But there's an end to it when you're running for office. When you're running a restaurant, there's no end to it. You just got to keep doing it.
Yeah. When someone calls in sick, you're in. Like if you're the cook. You know,
On the first Tuesday of November, your election's over. At least that one is. But when you're running a restaurant, there is no first Tuesday in November. It's all the time. And, I see these guys next door to me is Hopscotch Cafe here in Dunedin on Broadway. And, man, they work so hard. And, and it's tough because, you can only do so much right now. And people aren't wanting to come out. But their food is so good. If you get a chance to go over there, Hopscotch in downtown Dunedin, wonderful food. But I watch him work, and man, the two owners, they work sometimes 7 days a week. They don't have a day off, and man, that's a tough business, man.
And I am not opposed to work. Like that's not what this is.
No, nobody's saying that, but it's just you have to have balance, right?
Balance, and that is the problem. Is that look? The reality is when you're working so many hours, you're so focused, your health is probably not going to take the same. You're not going to give the same, time.
No, the stress kills your immune system, and you just it's a recipe for disaster, overwork. I mean, balance is a secret to life, right? I mean, whether it be in a marriage, whether it be in your diet, whether it be in your work schedule, it's all got to be a balance, the yin and the yang, right? You got to find that. Even though you know that balance might be the secret to life, doing it and executing it is a totally different thing, right?
Yep.
So it's hard to do. You have to try.
And speaking of balance, we are going to be balanced in Pinellas County with 2 baseball teams.
That is true. However, they are both in the same division.
Yeah. So we are going to have the Toronto Blue Jays here for the initial part of the season. I believe they're going to go.
You mean here?
What'd I say?
You said here, but you're in Clearwater, and I'm in Dunedin.
Well, close enough. You're in Palm Harbor, aren't you?
I'm literally right now. I'm in Dunedin.
Okay. Oh, that's right. You're in the office. That's right.
Yeah. No, we're just a walk away actually from the stadium, which is cool. So at least the first 2 series, I believe, will be here. I would say more. If I know the Canadian government, I know that they're not going to let them come back until things are steady.
If when the weather warms up in Buffalo, they're going to go to Buffalo, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that's what they were going to do, or they did last year, right?
They did last year. Yep.
Right.
They did last year, and so it just I believe it's a little too chilly in Buffalo in March. Apparently,
they might not be able to get those guys out of Dunedin after the first couple of series. They might say, "Oh, we're just going to stay here." I mean, hell, if you can only have so many people at a game, you might as well play right on the beach.
Well, the issue becomes, of course, Florida summers. So they're not really conducive out there. Although, hey, look, I would love for the Toronto Blue Jays to be like a nice little test run. Like, hey, let's have a professional baseball season during the summer here. Let's see how many rainouts we'll actually have.
Well, what's funny is that the fans here are so spoiled, and they're such babies because they won't go to Rays games. People in North Pinellas won't go to Rays games because it's South Pinellas. It's like, I have to drive all the way through the county. And so now, we have a team right down the road here. So we have a North Pinellas team and a South Pinellas team now. So, that'll be good for the fans.
I will say, though, too, you said about the fans are babies. And the issue is that, like, with this whole, outdoor, like, nobody wants to go to the Trop because it's indoors, right? Like, they say, oh, it's indoors. It's
yeah. Well, yeah, until they get to then they go to a Bucks game at 1 o'clock. And they won't go to a Bucks game because it's outdoors.
Well, and let's see what happens. So a long time ago we talked about this, but I used to work for the Clearwater Phillies, and so I worked the minor league season, and so that's the Major League Baseball season, and we had games, and it was humid. You just sit in the stand and you sweat, and so look, I don't mind, but most people mind. They want to be inside.
Yeah, we have an older population here, so we're going to see a lot of deaths with summer outdoor games during the day. All those games will have to be played at night at TD Park because it would be hot. I went to a spring training game there in March, not very long ago, and it was sitting in the dead sun against the Yankees, and I almost melted. And I'm pretty tolerant to heat, and it was hot, man. It was hot. I can't even imagine what it'd be like in June or July sitting out there in the park. So you bring up a good point, but
see how it goes.
That happens occasionally.
Anyway, are you doing anything this weekend before we go?
I'm going to Legoland tomorrow. If anybody wants to join me, I'm going to Legoland, taking the Rat Pack with me, and my wife and Caleb and Frankie, and we're going to go to Legoland, wear masks, social distance. It's the first time we've done anything near that in almost a year, so it'll be fun. So yeah, and I think for like $5 a month extra, you get the yearly pass. So probably not going to be my last trip to Legoland,
Well,
but I look forward to it.
yeah,
Anything with the kids and the wife, honest to God, it's fun. I love it.
I
It's a good
believe they
time.
have some 101 Dalmatian. I think they have some Dalmatian statues out there. So
Oh, well, I'll take some
get some
pictures for you.
pictures. Yeah, get some pictures for me.
Absolutely, man. I'm looking forward to it, and hopefully one of these days we could take the boys to Disney World again. Actually, Frankie's never been, so looking forward to going there. I haven't been since I was like 9 years old, so I'm kind of looking forward to that too. But what do you have going this weekend?
Yoga and exercise.
Mhm.
I think is pretty much all that's on my.
Damn it! You're going to be training all week.
Yes.
Hey, but before we leave, we need to probably figure out the logistics. This is supposed to be next week, right? Or would you
Uh,
like to just wait a couple more weeks?
let's we
Be all
can
right with me.
let's wait a couple weeks because I'd like to get down to 230, and so I'm
All
getting
right,
cheap.
well, all
Hey, look,
right.
you're
If
doing.
you wait too long, I'm gonna buy some sneakers. Next thing, I'm gonna get fast. So, all right, all
Yeah,
right.
well,
Well, we'll wait.
we
We'll,
can't
we'll put
make
it
that
off a couple more weeks and see.
happen.
But I think it's gonna be a good one. Do you have any idea where you'd like to do this? Are they gonna let us in the Ray J to do it?
I'm pretty sure they won't let us in the Ray J. I was thinking about the Toronto Blue Jays stadium, but I think because the Blue Jays are now going to be using it for the regular season, that's probably out.
TD Park. What about Jack Russell? Maybe.
Actually, Jack Russell is a good that would be a possibility. That is
Now
a
that is
stadium
on
still
grass,
there.
though, right?
What's that?
That's on grass.
Yeah,
See,
yeah. Well,
yeah.
there's still a field there. I mean, we could run on the red clay if you want.
Well, I don't have spikes. I was hoping maybe
Right. I mean, you're not
asphalt,
cutting; you're just running straight.
asphalt, or yeah. I don't know. Let me think about it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll think about it. So let's do a run down a hill. How about 40 yards down straight a hill? Because then it brings in balance too, and then there's the possibility that one of us could face plant.
If I have an inner tube, I
No,
could do
no, no.
that
Like running
in
down
any other state but Florida.
so that let's run down the grass part of the hill. At least that way, if one of us does face plant, most likely there's not going to be too much damage. I mean, it's not going to really hurt
I'm
you.
a big fan of flat 40s, but if I'm dashing,
You'll go faster.
yeah, we both will. Um, but yeah, start thinking about that, man. You might want to have your agent call my agent and see if we can start getting some logistics together because I'm starting to worry if we put this off any longer, it might not happen.
I think
And
Tony wants to join the race too. Maybe
yeah,
maybe we can make him eat the chip, right? Mike eats anything.
oh God,
We'll trip Tony, and then we'll just win, and then Tony will have to eat the chip. So
I don't know, man. Tony looks like he's in better shape than both of us. At least me.
I would
He's
agree.
definitely younger.
You know, I was thinking one of the things that we could do is see if we could find a listener or two, maybe one that would pick you, and then one that would pick me, and then the loser also has to eat the chip. So like it's kind of like we're not just doing it for ourselves, but the motivation is to save our friend who is also on the line. So that just kind of increases it. So I'm not sure. I mean, it's got to be voluntary. Obviously, we can't force anybody to do this. But Tony. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go.
Tony's in, man. Tony's game for anything. He's like, screw it.
You're my guy. So if I win,
you picked Dan? Really?
Yeah. So if Kris wins though, Tony, then you and I got to eat those take that one chip challenge, that Pocky.
And it's not a half a chip; it's one per.
Yeah, right? Each one of us. I got 5 of them. So I mean, we could have more people if they want to join in. And
I mean, who in the hell would want to do that? Like, besides Tony, obviously.
Well,
I don't know. It's like, all right, man. First off, you got to bet on me to win a race. Yeah. Well, secondly, if I lose, you got to eat the hottest thing in the world.
Yeah. Where's Raquel?
Sign me up.
Is she willing to bet on you? Is your wife willing to bet on you?
No, she's actually timed me in the 40, so she knows.
He wants to race me. What is this? Now Tony wants to race me. I thought he was like, what is this? He's turning on me now.
Yeah, I think that's more like it. He's not betting on you. He wants to he wants to run against you.
He wants to beat me and make me eat a chip is what he wants. He's like, I'm making you 2 chips.
I think this is going to turn into a Seinfeld episode. I think there's going to be a backfiring of a car. And you're going to take off first.
Well, I will say I think so. We have 5 chips. So what we should try to do, let's just say 2 weeks from now, try to find at least one other person, up to 5, that are willing to bet on us, and that bet is not to eat this chip. So
I'm
you're
a,
going to
I'm
find
a
out
tough
if you're
sell,
going to
man.
find out if we have any real friends or not in this one.
Well,
Here,
I don't even know if it's friends. It's just all you gotta do is look at me and say, like, no.
look,
No.
it's a matter of, do they believe? Do they have faith? Faith. This is not about reality. This is about faith. Do they have faith and belief in you? I mean, people believe in God. People believe in God. They can't touch or feel God. So,
They like spicy food.
yeah.
Maybe I'll check with my legal partner. There's probably something in our partnership contract that requires them to do it.
To back you no matter what.
Yeah, right. At all costs.
You didn't realize that was in the contract. If I have to eat a hot chip, you do too.
Yeah. Well, the guy's got he's got an iron gut, man. I've sat and watched him eat a whole jar of pickled peppers from my garden at 10 o'clock in the morning, just like candy. In his 50s. It's crazy.
Yeah, he's crazy. So, all right, I think we're done for the day. Thank you, Kris. Thank you,
Yeah,
Tony.
man.
Thank you, all of our listeners, for tuning in today. And just as a reminder, the last thing we go here, just keep Deputy Magley in your prayers. Oops, put the wrong one up here. And if you are able to contribute to the memorial fund, please do so. You can also go to the Pinellas County Sheriff's website for more information, but you can also make any contributions at any SunTrust banking location in the area. So on that note, I hope everybody has a great weekend. Make sure you stay close and tell your family and friends that you love them, and be well and stay warm this weekend.
I love you, Dan.
I love you, Kris. Bye.
Bye. Am I on here alone? I feel like Garth when Wayne leaves.